Hey, Janelle, you can unmute yourself now. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Hey, guys. So my name is Caroline. I actually work for Pace and Cody, and this is Janelle. Who are you?
I work with Start Virtual with Cody.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about Start Virtual, and then we'll kind of talk about what I'm doing here. So what is Start Virtual, and what do we need to know about Start Virtual?
Right. So we really help business owners and individuals who are running any type of business really get into having virtual assistants. Everybody at some point is on a path to grow, and that's really important. So I think that most people need to understand that part of the growth is having the people to back you up. So being able to have the right people behind you can either be the cause of your success or failure. So really what we're here to do is help you guys get started with those virtual assistants who are trained properly the first time for either real estate or insurance or whatever it is that you do, so that you can go ahead and surpass your expectations and start succeeding in your business.
Perfect. Well, I know that you have a few questions for me, and I know that we have a lot of people that are on. We already have about 75 people watching us. So Cody shared a post, and I shared it as well on the creative page. And I know there's a lot of people, like everybody's like, I'm so excited to be here. A lot of people want to talk about my virtual assistant that I have from Start Virtual that Cody and Matt and Pace set me up with. So we'll get into talking about me, but I know you have a few questions for me that might be able to help a lot of people. So let's go over the questions that you have, Janelle, and then I'll take the spotlight for myself and talk about me and my virtual assistant, Harold.
Sure. So the first question I think that would be great to know is, did you always know that you needed a virtual assistant, and how did that come to pass?
I did not. So fun fact, guys, I'm actually a TTP alumni. So I know you're going to ask me this question, and I'm jumping ahead of you, Janelle. So last year on June 15th, I got into the real estate industry. I signed up for TTP. I went through everything. Guys, Brent Daniels is an amazing coach, and he preaches cold calling. And let me tell you, I hate cold calling. Oh my gosh, it's just not fun for me. So I didn't know that I needed a VA. The answer is no. I was cold calling a lot, but when I found out about Start Virtual and having somebody who's trained and is going through this all the time, it freed up a lot of time for me to do stuff in my own business and to help out the business that I'm working in right now. So I didn't always know that I needed a VA, but having a VA has made my life much easier. And it's a great kind of set it and forget it. And when I bring up my VA, Harold, on here later on, you guys are going to have the opportunity to talk to him and ask him some questions. So no, Janelle, I did not know I needed a VA. Now that I have a VA, I don't know what I was doing before without a VA.
That's awesome. So yeah, you kind of went right over another question. So they've been pretty detrimental to the business. So I guess, how long was that process for you of getting your VA?
So getting a VA, it doesn't actually take that long. If you go with Start Virtual, it's a quick startup. You go through, you have an onboarder, you talk. I believe when I had my own VA for my own business before I was doing the dispoing, it took us maybe a couple of days after we signed up to do our onboarding and to get our VA started. Now, was I the best manager of my VA back in October? No. And you know what? I'm very sorry to my virtual assistant that I had, because in my head, I was thinking that VAs are like robots. You're like, oh my gosh, if I hire a VA, they're going to go out and get me all these leads. I'm going to be able to close all these deals. And I wasn't doing a great job of coaching and managing my VA. So when I got Harold back in January, I made it a point to really go into talking about, like, what are his goals? Like, oh my gosh, Harold, you're not a robot. This is so mind-boggling to me. So I spent the time getting to know him. What were his goals? Telling him that we were planning to build out an entire system around him with more VAs. I let him know up front, like, hey, you're my guy. I want you to be in charge of the dispo position for me. I want to have other VAs under us. So hiring a VA from Start Virtual was super easy. Was I the best manager at first? No, I was so bad. And I'm so glad that I've learned watching Matt Beard's videos on how to train your VAs and going to a mastermind and seeing how he does the call calibrations and just actually checks in with them daily, blew my mind, and it's actually made me a better manager for my VA.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have daily.
I want to get all over.
Yeah, right. So how long have you been with Start Virtual then? How long have you, since when?
Well, so before I started working with Pace and Cody, I actually had my own VA back in October. So I guess you could say I've been working with Start Virtual since October, but with Harold, this VA that I have now under the disposition position, he's been with me since January.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. So how many people watching, I guess, have ever been through the phase of thinking you can just do this alone, you don't need a VA, or maybe you're scared to get a VA because, you don't know what's actually going to happen. You guys can just like raise your hands.
I'd love to see everybody in the chat right now. Let us know who here doesn't have a VA and like you're just against it. Or if you do have a VA, like share like you have a VA and what they've done for you. I see right now, Aaron says, Matt inspired me to train my VA and he is incredible. Guys, if you're not on Matt Beard's, like following Matt Beard, I swear Matt Beard is the VA whisperer. He knows how to bring the best out of people. Matt is a great coach and I work with Matt side by side all the time. He's really helpful. So while we wait for those to come in yet, okay, sweet. We've seen some people, they're ready to hire mine. I don't have a VA yet. Yeah, guys, you should definitely, it's going to save a lot of time in your business. So the big reason why I like VAs, Janelle, so like I'm doing a lot. I basically wear quite a few hats, but what Harold does for me, and we'll bring him up later and he'll talk about what all he does. Harold knows how to pull lists from batch leads. He knows how to skip trace them. He knows how to load them up into the batch dialer. He knows how to do texting from he is a batch wizard. If you ask Harold anything about batch, he probably knows it all. And it's literally for me being like, hey, Harold, I don't have time to train you on everything. Like I have some videos. Can you deep dive into this on your own? And Harold has taken the initiative to go learn how to do all these things. He actually set up an entire texting campaign last week with the batch texting platform. So he learns it all, but it's freed me up to talk to buyers because my job as a disposition manager is to talk to buyers and negotiate our price and get on the same page and make sure that earnest money has been deposited and that we're marketing correctly. So Harold gets to do all the boring admin stuff that I don't want to do. I want to be able to come on to the Wholesale Hotline pre-show and be able to talk and share my experience with my VA. And while I'm doing that, Harold is in the background texting our buyers, pulling more buyers. He knows how to even reach out to hedge fund buyers. Like it's insane what you can do when you take the time to nurture your VA and really pour into them and show them the expectations that you'd like. So that's awesome. Well, let's see. Are there any good questions you're seeing so far on the side here, Janelle? Ready to hire mine? Not one yet. Okay. Don't have one. We need help.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's ready, right? And some don't have one, but they do need help. That's awesome. And what is his contact, please?
Yeah, you guys cannot have Harold. Harold does not have a twin. I wish he does. Actually, you know what? He might have a twin and Start Virtual. And guys, the cool thing is Harold actually started out as a cold caller for Start Virtual. So Harold used to cold call all of these lists. So Harold's been moving up through the ranks and there's a ton of room for growth in Start Virtual. And I mean, I think he was actually going to be a lead manager, but Matt saw the potential in him being able to manage a team instead of closing deals. So that's why Matt set him up with me to work in the disposition side. This is awesome. It's okay.
Right. And then there's also, people can find their own leads, whether that's driving for dollars or referrals or the wholesaler dead leads. But it's really actually cool to know that you don't have to do that because it could be taken care of for you through a VA.
Oh, 100%. And also the other thing, I've actually even taught Harold how to he knows how to comp properties. Like we use batch leads and we comp properties together, but he knows how to go on Facebook. I've taught him how to go through Facebook groups, join investor groups. He even finds us co-wholesale opportunities. Somebody's like, hey, I need a buyer. Or if he sees anything in Phoenix, guys, if you have anything in Phoenix, we'll take it and we'll fix and flip it. But Harold knows how to look through these groups and be like, hey, Caroline, here's an opportunity. And we message all day in Slack. We do a Zoom every morning after I'm doing some role play Zooms in the sub 2 mentorship. We do a Zoom at 9. We talk about what our goals are. We talk about like, what is our priority for the day? Everything like that. We get all of our expectations up front and we tackle those.
So what was like your breaking point? What was the breaking point for you to where you were just like, you know what, I can't wait anymore. I have to get help. I need a VA.
It was honestly the best way to explain it. Guys, I took one acting class in college, so I'm really dramatic when I do things. But the best way to do for me to learn, because I do have ADHD, is to talk about how overwhelmed I was. So I was doing stuff in the mentorship. I was still trying to learn on my own. I was holding 2 water bottles. I was holding my phone. I was holding my sunglasses, and it was just all getting too much for me. So I had to get a VA. And I was literally like, Cody, Matt, I am calling like 200 buyers a day. I can't call these buyers, comp all of our properties, send things out, work on MailChimp. Like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to do this. We were in a bunch of markets. I was new. And they're like, don't worry, Caroline, we've got the hookup for you. And they hooked me up with Harold from Start Virtual. And guys, when you are overwhelmed, this is a big thing that Pace has taught me. When you're overwhelmed, that's when you should get some help. So get to where you can't handle that anymore and hire a VA. Like, it's the best thing that's happened to the disposition part of our company, in my opinion. And I'm ready for us to get more VAs, because Harold just has everything under control, from being able to ask me questions and learning on his own. Like, if you guys pour into your VAs, they are going to give back to you tenfold. Like, it's insane what has happened just for us by really learning with Harold, because I've been learning this whole disposition process with him. I didn't start doing mass dispo until January. So this is all new for me too.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome to know that you're doing so well with them. And there's something to be said about Start Virtual and the assistance and what they offer. But congratulations on your success, because it's pretty big. And I know that I just heard about something that your VA got for you, right? So you did like this amazing deal, and I would love to hear all about how that came to be, and if he set that for you or how that went.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to talk about that, and I'll actually pull Harold on here in a few minutes. He's actually waiting for us in the background. But I wanted to touch on Tanisha here. She just said my VA for my first lead that led to a contract in less than 2 weeks. So guys, if you really take time, your VAs will hook you up. I'm going to pull up that. There it is. Pull this back up for you. But yeah, so fun fact for our business, the way that our whole acquisition process works, we are completely Start Virtual VAs. So from pulling the list to texting them, to cold calling them, to setting up an appointment, leading up to our lead manager, that is all from virtual assistants. So last week, Harold, there was not an American involved in the process at all. So if you guys have been on the creative financing page, you'll actually see the post that Cody shared from our Podio, from our CRM, that says we're making a $42,000 assignment, and there was no American involved. Harold pulled cash buyers, texted them, sent out our email blast. All I had to, he would respond with me like, hey, this person's offering this, and this person's offering this. And I said, hey, just hold on. We have a lot of offers. This property just went on the market. Let's take our highest and best by Monday. And he actually replied to our buyer, and the buyer was like, all right, I'll buy it right now for your asking price. So there was not an American involved other than me just saying, just reply with this. It was all Harold from the get-go. So you guys can run a business with virtual assistants from Start Virtual and not have to, like, as long as you're coaching them and you're on top of it, they are going to do all of it. They're going to run your business for you, and it's amazing. So yeah, Harold did everything, and I didn't speak to our buyer. I didn't speak to our seller. I communicated with title, just emailing them, pushing through our contracts, but every bit of communication with our seller and our buyer was from virtual assistants from Start Virtual, which was really cool.
That's awesome. Terrell Small says Pace has done so much for him in the way of paying it forward. So yeah, squat up, man. That's like, everybody's doing that right now. It's the best way to be doing things, is not by yourself. That's the whole point of this, right? So
this is really cool too. You know, if you see this one from Erin, she said, my VA is completely a part of my team. If I get sick, my business could fully operate without me. And that's the nice part. So another thing to tell you guys, I was really concerned when I came in, because COVID was happening at the beginning of the year, and I got sick for 2 weeks with COVID. I got COVID, and I had, the worst migraine. It's real. It was pretty bad, but everything was still able to run because we had systems in place. So the biggest thing I can say as well, Janelle, is have systems in place. I would say, get a rough idea of what are the 15 repetitive tasks. And this is actually what Pace taught me. Get the 15 repetitive tasks that you do day in and day out, and assign those to a VA. So when I come in the morning, we have a channel in our Slack that says like deal flow. Where are we with our deal communication? And it used to be me. I'd go through our deal communication, see what was locked up the day before, because I get up really early. I'm up around Pace's time. I'm up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and everybody else is still sleeping. So I'm like, okay, what deals have we get done? I'm going to take care of that because I'm doing a Zoom at 5. But now I don't have to worry about that. Harold comes in. He knows that's part of his daily task. He's like, okay, I'm going to go through deal flow. Okay, we lock this up. Then he'll put it in our conveyor belt, because as you guys have heard Pace talk about the whole conveyor belt, we can see where our deals are. He knows to automatically make a channel. He'll add in Rochelle Jarvis, who works with us from Constant Close. He'll add in Cody. He'll add in the lead manager that locked it up. Pace gets to see it. They get to see everything. It's just those repetitive tasks. I don't have to tell Harold to do that because it's now a habit. Harold knows as soon as he clocks in, I'm going to get this part of my task done, this done. All right, I'm going to start my property profile for this deal that we got locked up. I'm going to reach out to the seller so we can get photos set up, and I'm going to reach out to our photography company to work everything together. So it started with me not really knowing, having a clear direction with my VA, and then creating those tasks for him so he could succeed. And now it's kind of just like Harold just runs on cruise control, which is amazing. And he just comes to me when he needs help, which is really, really cool. So if you guys take the time to really understand what works for your VA and coach them through everything, your business can run completely on its own without you having to be involved, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and Gene says the VAs are already experienced at talking to the sellers. So yeah, they're trained to talk, to do sales, to pick up the phone. They love to pick up the phone. They're not hurt anymore by getting hung up on if that's the case. They're used to it.
Yeah, I'm not sure the whole process that goes into the training, but I know that what we do in our company every day, we talk with them to figure out what's going on, and we do call calibration. So again, Matt Beard is that VA whisperer, but Matt touches a lot on this call calibrations, listening to their recordings and going through and role playing with them. I'm actually going to pull Harold up here in a second here, but actually what Harold and I do, because we just work with buyers mainly, we'll talk to sellers and just let them know where we are in the process. But we actually switch positions and role play. So I let Harold be the buyer and I role play as Harold, the VA, calling to see if they're interested in having interested in buying a property from us. So we take a lot of time. I'm all about coaching. Like I said, guys, I'm ADHD, so I'm really hands-on. I want to be able to switch positions so everybody can kind of get the hang of it. But Jill, what do you think if we pull up Harold here and we can ask Harold some questions, what's helped him be successful?
Yeah, no kidding. Let's do it.
All right. So let's pull Harold up. Let's see. Ooh, you got your camera on. Harold, what's up, dude?
What's up, Janelle? Hey, Caroline.
How's it going?
Really good.
So, Harold, welcome to Wholesale Hotline pre-show. Tell us a little bit about you and what's helped you be successful as a VA, and maybe tell us a little bit about that deal that you did all on your own without any help from me.
Yeah. So I was listening. My story was I was cold calling sellers for 6 months, and then there was an opening for lead manager position in Matt's VA company, and I went ahead and applied. He didn't pick me, but he said that I was a better fit for the disposition department. I was excited, and at the same time, I was nervous because, this would be a new role for a VA. It has never been put in place before. So, yeah, I was really excited, and I think the reason why I'm doing such, I'm driven is because I love real estate. It is my passion, and I want to have like my own real estate company here in the Philippines in the future, maybe in 10 years from now. It's just my dream. So I was lucky enough to get a job at the one of the best real estate company in the world.
What's it called? What's it called, Harold? What's the best real estate company in the world called?
It's I would say AO.
Start Virtual.
Start Virtual for BA company, but the best real estate company for me is I'm biased because I worked here, but it's AO for me.
Nice.
So I also got the chance to work with Caroline. I'd say it's one of the best things that has ever happened in my life. I feel like I was destined to work with her. I'm not just saying this. I can totally say that she brought out the best out of me, not just as an employee, but as a person. Actually, I was smoking. I was a chain smoker for the last 7 years, and Caroline just inspired me to be a better person. In the last 2 months, I'm smoke free. I haven't smoked. And aside from that, she invited me to join her in her 75 hard challenge. You all know what that is, and that helped me develop great habits and just replace all the negative ones.
So Harold, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here. So would you say like me being interested in what inspires you and like working together has really helped you love what you do more?
Yeah. You always encourage me, even with just small improvements.
I appreciate it, Harold. But I want to know, like, what's helped you be a good VA? I appreciate everything you're saying about me, and I love working with you. But like, what have I done managing you that's made it easier for you to come and work and run in the dispo department? What all do you like working with me? Like, what has been helpful for you?
I mean, you just you don't just tell me what to do. You actually show it to me. You create this trainual videos. We get on Zoom and you demonstrate how to do it. You model how to talk with this buyers and sellers. So you're always setting examples for me, so it's very easy for me to follow that.
I love that. Well, that's great. I appreciate everything you said, and I love working with you too. And I think us working together and learning together has been really helpful. So what all can you do? Just because I know before you were only cold calling. So what all are you capable of now? I know you might have heard me in the pre-show, but what do you feel most comfortable doing as the disposition VA?
Yeah, I started with very little skills and knowledge on how to do this. Like I only know how to cold call before. So now I'm doing. I mean, I was listening to what you were saying earlier. I now know how to pull data from prop stream, skip trace, and batch lead, set up SMS campaign, and even do set up a cold calling campaign if needed. I also do the marketing, like if we need to text blast, email blast, advertise on Facebook and Craigslist to get our deal sold. Yeah, those are the things that I'm currently doing.
So look right below us, Harold. There's a question here from the people that are, so we're live right now. If you didn't know, we're live on YouTube. So there's everybody that's watching us. They're really interested to ask you some questions. So one of the first questions was, what did you find most difficult at first, Harold? What was the hardest part about, maybe you could dig into this a little more, Saeed, but I'm going to assume, what was most difficult at first for you in the disposition department?
At first it was difficult for me to talk to buyers because these people are highly experienced in real estate investing, and I just didn't know enough. Yeah, that's the time where I reached out to Caroline, ask her how to respond to this person. How do I handle this kind of objection? What do I tell to a person who's asking this question? So
did you say the role plays that we do have been helpful when you get to be the buyer and I get to be Harold?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I create a script out of those role plays, and I just write it down so I can always look at it whenever I'm talking to a buyer or a seller.
I love that. Okay, cool. So Janelle, do you have any questions for Harold? I'm waiting to see some more pop up here in the chat. Is there anything you'd like to know about being a disposition VA? I know that you're not in the whole real estate realm.
Nope. I used to flip houses for a few years, so I remember digging in myself and doing all that work. So would have been helpful for me to know about this kind of stuff a long time ago. I think, how long did it take you to really, with the role playing and everything that you do with Carolyn, how long until you became like really present with yourself and know that, hey, I'm going to just kick butt with the skills that I've learned? How long did it take you to actually learn and grasp those skills?
I mean, I started with just cold calling buyers, and then Caroline started training me to do the administrative stuff. So in order for me, I mean, it took me like 6 to 8 weeks to master a task, and then Caroline just keeps on training me how to do more stuff. So I'd say 6 to 8 weeks in order to get really good at something.
Yeah, I would say repetition is the mother of skill. So same thing, I'm going to talk because I do a lot of role play practice in the morning with everybody. I talk with all the closers that are in the sub 2 mentorship, but that's something that we preach over and over. And that's why I've been doing role plays with Harold, and I saw Matt Beard do this with the VAs. Like, I think this is huge and really helpful, and it's made you more confident, right, Harold, talking to people?
Yes.
Hey, guys, I'm gonna be honest here. I don't know if Harold would have done this live with us back in January. You might have been a little shy, right, Harold?
Yeah, I still am.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harold has opened up a lot, and it's just because I feel like honestly, Harold, I feel like because we talk about like what are your goals, what do you want to do with yourself, like how do you want to be better, and like what can we do to get more deals done so we can problem solve for more sellers, and also the whole point is so we can have money so we can take care of our family and to create a financial freedom for ourselves. So I think that's really huge, and I like that we talk about that. I want to touch on this next question right here. So Harold, this is for you. Not only how long, but how many calls would you estimate before you had to do before you felt comfortable? I think I might have read that wrong. Anyways, you kind of said it took about 6 to 8 weeks. But how do you feel like when we do our practices and we'd like listen to or talk about your calls afterwards? How long did it take for you to really feel comfortable texting buyers and talking to buyers? About 8 weeks, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say around 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, when it comes to cold calling, but with all the admin stuff, it's actually easier for me to do the texting and admin stuff.
It's
I
faster.
get it's faster for me to get familiar with that. But when it comes to talking to someone over the phone, I mean, it involves a lot of topics. So yeah.
So one thing that I like to do when I'm
time.
role playing with Harold, because it does get off topic, is I'll throw whatever I can throw. I'll throw the entire kitchen sink at him. We'll be in a regular role play and we'll be going on about the topic, and I'll just completely divert and we'll talk about Wyoming and how nice the mountains are, and I'll have him rein me back in. So practicing with your VA so they can handle those crazy objections or whatever somebody might throw at them will be really helpful, because you really relied on a script for a while, right, Harold?
Yes, I still do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's okay, guys. We talk about that. Memorize, internalize, and personalize scripts for yourself. So they're perfect. Great. I was about to pull that list up here. So Harold, Jennifer has a question for you. Does Harold do comps? Harold, we've comped together before, right?
Yeah.
What has been helpful to help you I know that you don't do a lot of comping. That's mainly me. But what has helped you? What tools did I provide for you to know how to comp? Think about what's in our Google Drive.
Yeah, we have like this comp cheat sheet. So it's a guideline that we use, and Caroline's always sending me YouTube videos, train you all. She goes on a Zoom with me to show me how she comps, and then she lets me comp while she watch. So yeah.
Go ahead, Harold. I'm sorry. I have ADD, guys. I gotta get my thought out before I forget it. So I'm a big believer in like practicing like hands-on. So the entire comping cheat sheet that I have is actually Jamil Damji's. So if you guys have not seen Jamil's comping, you need to get that. And I think Jamil goes live every Sunday to do comping with you, but we've learned a lot from Jamil. Jamil has been super helpful for us when we do comping. So Harold does know how to comp. And like I said earlier, Harold knows how to go into Facebook groups and to find deals for us to co-wholesale on and to find cash buyers for us. So yes, Harold does know how to comp. He does it softly, and then he'll bring it over to me for me to confirm that the comps are good. I know. Look at all the Harold. Don't leave me. All these people want to know if you have a twin. Do you have a twin somewhere at Start Virtual?
Not yet.
We'll have to work with that. So this is awesome. So maybe we can do another little dig deeper into talking about what it's been like having you. But I want to touch base before we get off, because I know we're getting close to the timeline for Wholesale Hotline to officially begin. Harold, what would you say about that deal where we made $42,000 as an assignment fee? How hard was that? What did you have to do to get that deal done?
Yeah, I just did the process. Like I followed all the steps to get a deal sold, and this time I was using a phone number of my own, because before when I'm marketing, I'm still doing this. Like if I'm posting deals on Facebook, email blasting it.
What is your whole process for marketing? What all do you do? Can you kind of rattle off the few things where we market?
Okay, so once we get the photos and all the property information of the deals we have under contract, I go ahead and create a property profile, email blast that, text blast that, and then
who do we text to first?
VIP buyers first.
So we do VIP buyers first. We give them a little bit of time, and then we send it out through our MailChimp campaign that Harold runs completely. So Harold is the MailChimp master. He does everything. He just sends it to me to actually before this live, you sent me a property to double check because it was going out at 5 o'clock. So guys, we actually had Harold set up a property profile for a property, and he scheduled it to go out at 5 o'clock so he can be live with us right now. You know how to do all of that, right, Harold?
Yes, ma'am.
Really talk all over you here. I know I'm trying to get it out because we're actually at 5 o'clock here. So you texted our VIP buyers, you sent it out through a MailChimp campaign, and then how did we end up selling this deal? What happened here?
Yeah, this person was really interested in the deal. I was excited as well because he gave an offer right away, like within the minute that he saw that deal. So I just relayed his message, his offer to Caroline. And I just replied what Caroline told me to tell him, and then he replied. Yeah, he asked for a number that, and then I told him that we will take the best offer on Monday, but he insisted that he wants to buy it at the asking price, sight unseen. So I just relayed it to Caroline, and then
what's up, Pace?
What's up, guys?
How's it going, man?
I'm gonna abruptly end you guys because I've got an attorney charging $17,000 per hour on the other screen. Just kidding.
I love it. We'll get out of here. Thanks for having
Caroline,
us, guys.
I just gotta say your new hairstyle is unbelievable. We all love it.
Well, thank you. I had to donate it. I donated it. I'm getting used to the short hair.
Amazing. Good to see everybody on here. Let's get Wholesale Hotline started. Janelle, good to see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Guys, we're going to go on a quick 20-second break, and we will then start Wholesale Hotline in just a minute. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show.
Oh, here we go. Wholesale Hotline number 70. Oh my goodness. This is going to be absolutely incredible. This is going to be fire. And not like just the fire that, the kids talk about. I'm talking about the elements here, Pace. I'm talking about the 4 elements that make up fire, brother, which of course is oxygen, heat,
That's right.
The fuel right there, Jamil. And today we've got the chemical reaction, the 4th part, the absolute essential part to make fire with Sean St. Clair. Sean, this is going to be an awesome time with you, brother. Thank you for being on.
Thanks, Brent. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Pace, why don't you give us a introduction and let's start rolling this thing out because I'm sure people are just going to bombard us with questions.
Okay, cool, guys. On the screen, and if you're listening to iTunes or Spotify, which you guys can go back and watch the previous episodes, we've got Sean St. Clair. He's a local real estate attorney. He deals with a lot, specifically a lot in my own business. memorandums, Liz pendants, lawsuits, evictions, all of which he's done for me and my business partners just in the last 30 to 45 days. This guy is a busy man. Him and his law firm are also licensed in Georgia. So if you guys are out there in Atlanta area or all of Georgia, definitely look them up. But today we've got Sean St. Clair, somebody I consider a hero. He is a forward-thinking attorney in the sense that he provides a tremendous amount of value to people for free. We're going to be talking about a Facebook group that he is building. But more specifically today, we're going to be talking about memorandums, Liz pendants, the ins and outs and who, what, when, where, and whys of what a memorandum is, the legalities, when you should use them, when shouldn't you use them, and the no-nos with memorandums as well. So welcome to the show, Mr. Sean St. Clair. How you doing, Sean?
Good, Pace. How are you?
Bro, I'm so good. Anytime I get to hang out with you, I had to hang out with you. You had to hang out with me on Saturday, and here we are on Monday. You have to hang out with me again.
Hey, it's all right. Saturday was good. That was a lot of fun, though.
That was a lot of fun. I actually learned a couple things from you on Saturday. I got a ton of value. I appreciate you so much. So today, guys, ask every possible question you have about memorandums. Any question you have about what happens if I sign a contract with a seller and the seller goes ghost on me? What do I do? Any question that you wish you could afford, because there's people in the audience right now. We have 200 watching live. We'll probably get upwards of 450 today. Watching live. And I bet you out of those 450 live viewers, we're going to have 449 of them asking the question of what happens if I lock up a contract and the seller changes their mind? What happens if I sign a contract with a seller and the seller passes away? What happens if the seller refuses to close escrow? What are all the things I can do to protect myself as a real estate investor? Those are just 3 of the 100 questions that I would ask a real estate attorney if I didn't have to pay for his time right now. So guys, now is the time. Now, Sean, recently you've been dealing with a transaction for me in just the state of Arizona where my company signed a contract 2 years ago. We ended up having another wholesaler, and I know we can't talk about the house and the address and the other people involved because there's pending things going on and all that kind of stuff. But another wholesaler came in after me, signed a contract, and then filed a memorandum on the property well after I signed a contract and was planning on closing escrow. They put me in a position where I couldn't close escrow immediately. And I want to talk about that. What did you do? What did I do? Because I'm at a point in my business where I realized just outsource this kind of stuff. Don't deal with it on your own. So Sean, let me ask the first question. We'll get this stuff happening. I already see a ton of questions right now in the comments. If I sign a contract with a seller and a month later, I go to close escrow, I've got my lender, I'm ready to go. I'm going to fix and flip this thing. I'm not wholesaling it. I'm fixing and flipping it. And my title company says, hey, there was a memorandum filed on this property 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks after I signed the original contract. What would you advise as my attorney in that situation? What do I have the right to do?
Well, the first thing we need to look at is, did they have the legal authority to record a memorandum? So here in Arizona, we have a statute that actually codifies the idea of slander of title. It's ARS 33420. And under that statute, it says that any document that's recorded that does not have a legal basis in statute or other law is presumed to be groundless and invalid. And then it provides that in the event that you record a groundless and invalid document here in Arizona, number one, if you knowingly do it, it's a misdemeanor. It's a class 1 misdemeanor. Second, it provides automatic $5,000 in statutory damages. Boom, $5,000. Or if there's actual damages and you get to triple those actual damages, and if that works out to an amount greater than $5,000, then you get your actual damages, plus your attorney's fees and costs and having to deal with it. So it's a pretty significant event to go and record a document where there's no basis in statute. I've yet to see anybody who's pointed to an Arizona statute that says, hey, under this statute, I can record a memorandum of a purchase contract. In fact, in order to record a document in Arizona, you have to present to the county recorder what? Two things: the original document, and it has to be acknowledged. So what are buyers doing with memorandums? Well, they're not having the seller acknowledge or sign and have it notarized, right? No, they're unilaterally executing the memorandum, and then they're going and recording it.
Can I put you on pause for a second and dumb this down? You actually do an incredible job versus other attorneys, but there's a couple of things I want to point out for everybody. So what Sean is saying that you can't just go and file a memorandum on a property. And what is a memorandum? Sean, will you break down what a memorandum is, and then we can keep going on?
Yeah, a memorandum is simply a document that provides notice to anyone else that might be interested in that property that you have a pending contract for the sale of that property. You are looking to buy that property, and you have a contract, and so you're letting the world know that you have that contract. That's what a memorandum is.
Love it. Okay, so guys, just to say that in the same words, essentially, when we buy a property, we don't want those 30 days or 45 days that goes by. We don't want somebody coming in and snaking the deal from us. So we are well within our rights as investors, or even wholesalers for that matter, to file a memorandum that will protect us from somebody else coming along and closing that transaction on day 29 or day 27 behind our back at a different title company. Because how would we know? How would we know if the buyer goes and signs a contract the next day and goes and opens escrow at a different title company? It's not like there's some inner communication going on between title companies, guys. They don't communicate because they're competitors. That'd be like Burger King and McDonald's sharing recipes. That's not what happens, okay? A memorandum puts a notice on the county recorder. You can go down to the county recorder, or you can go to deeds.com and file just about any document nowadays, deeds.com. And if you go to deeds.com, it costs about $17. You can file a memorandum. And that memorandum tells the world, hey, idiots, I already have a contract on this house. Don't even bother trying to mess with my seller. That's what it's there for, and it's there to protect you. However, going back about 4 minutes, Sean St. Clair just said that some knucklehead wholesalers, but he didn't say that, he's very polite, some knucklehead wholesalers will unilaterally file a memorandum. What does that mean? That means that the seller is unaware that the buyer is putting a memorandum on the house. And that is actually not lawful to do that. Is that correct, Sean?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, the purchase contract isn't a notarized document. And so because it's not notarized, you can't go and record that. And so the seller would be oblivious to the idea of, hey, all of a sudden they're going to go to the county recorder's office and record something that's going to cloud my title. There's a simple solution, which is have a provision in the purchase contract whereby the seller states that the buyer can record a memorandum, and better yet, have the form memorandum attached to the purchase contract.
Yes.
When I see these memorandums recorded, there's two things that drive me crazy. Number one, they record them with the purchase contract. Why do you want everyone to know how much you're buying this property for? Why do you attach the purchase contract, right? That's not the purpose of the memorandum, is put the world on notice that you're buying it for X amount of dollars and all the different, terms and conditions of your agreement with the seller. So that's number one. And then number two, when I look at that purchase contract that's recorded, I look to see, did the seller authorize this? I would say 90% of the time, the answer is no.
Such a great point that you bring up. So there's been people all over the country that say, hey, I got a contract and I filed a memorandum on this property, and then magically some other wholesaler stole the deal from me and was able to close escrow. How was that possible with the fact that I filed a memorandum? And guys, I think everybody on this screen owns a partnership in a title company or is a closing attorney. You guys will close deals in Atlanta. I think you guys will, right?
We're not closing attorneys in Atlanta, but we.
Okay, no
You
problem.
know,
But you're incredibly
enough,
experienced in
yeah.
this stuff. So you understand that a title company can actually choose to close and record a transaction even if there is a memorandum on the property. And what the title company is doing is they're pulling up your knucklehead contracts and your knucklehead memorandums that were filed improperly. And they say in the contract, it does not have any notice to the seller that you have the right to file a memorandum on their property. And so the title company has the right, if they choose to do so, to record the new buyer's contract and close escrow around your memorandum because you didn't do it properly. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so let's just say hypothetically, you enter into a transaction. It has a strict close of escrow date, no cure notice. And so seller doesn't perform. And instead of taking steps like going to court and trying to specifically enforce and require the seller to perform, you just go and record a memorandum. 2 years later, the title company's looking at this thing saying, you know, they're doing a cost benefit analysis because what they're issuing is an insurance product. You know, are we at risk? This thing's over 2 years old. Close of escrow was 2 years ago. You know, if the seller was interested in this or the buyer was interested in this thing, they would have taken some form of action. And once close of escrow comes and goes and you don't have a cure notice, boom, contract's done in my view, unless you have some way of putting the world on notice that it's the actual seller that refused to perform, if that makes sense.
So before we go on, because I know Jamil's got a bunch of questions and I've got some really good questions for TTP and Jamil and their student base, and also Jamil doing deals all over the country. They're doing hundreds of wholesale transactions every month. So I imagine they're running into these memorandum issues all the time. Before we get into that, I want to let the audience know that last week I had Sean St. Clair come into my mentorship in sub 2. And I asked Sean to create a new wholesale purchase contract for us over the next couple of weeks that gives the seller notice that we will be filing or have the right to file a memorandum, and then also attaching the memorandum documents to that purchase contract so that you can do this the proper way. I'm going to be giving that document to Brent Daniels and Jamil Damji so that you guys can release that to your students and to release that to your people. I imagine you guys at some point will be able to find that document on what website, Brent? Talktopeople.com?
You got it. Yep. TTP Insider, talktopeople.com. Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna make it available because right here on the screen, Michael Diaz says, "Do you need the seller to approve the memorandum?" And we've already touched base on that, but Sean, can we just hit that one more time? Do we need the seller to approve the memorandum in order for it to be a lawfully done and properly done memorandum?
The answer is you need the seller to authorize the recording of the memorandum. That is what you need legally. The better practice is to attach a form of memorandum to the contract that says, this is what I will be recording. That way there's no issue. When you record a memorandum, the seller can't come back and say, well, I knew you were recording a memorandum, but I didn't know it was going to contain all of this. You know, I never signed off on those, you know, that language of the memorandum, et cetera. So in my view, the better practice to protect yourself is to attach a form memorandum and say, this is what I'm going to record. I'm going to fill in the blanks and record it.
Yep. I love it. I love it, Sean. I love it for this reason right now, because if you're going through this contract with that property owner and they have a problem with this memorandum, you know, you're dealing with a seller that maybe has wandering eyes. That's a conversation that you should know so that you don't get all heartbroken when these people call you up a day later and say, oh, somebody else is offering me more. I don't want to do this. Right? I don't want to work with you. I'm going to cancel this contract. And you're like, no, like, now you got to scramble and secretly put together. This is what normal people do. Secretly put together a memorandum and put it on the house. And hopefully the title company gets scared by it and you get some sort of, you know, return on your time and your marketing costs for that deal. But if you have it right there in plain language and you're showing the memorandum and they're like, yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. Yep, I'm committed to you. You're committed to me. This is great. That is a much more solid contract. That's a much more solid relationship. Those are the deals that I want to do.
So guys, can I tell you the line to tell the seller? Here's the line to tell a seller when you're getting a memorandum. And I just talked about this with Sean St. Clair. Sean, is it funny that you're actually referred to as Sean St. Clair, not as Sean? I don't ever say Sean. I'm like Sean St. Clair, Sean St. Clair. That might as well be your first name, is Sean St. Clair. So
it's a great name.
It is a killer. When you came out of the womb with Sean St. Clair as your name, you were born to be an attorney. There's no way around that. So, here's the line. I want everybody to write this down. I just went through this with my sub 2 students on Friday's bonus Zoom with Sean. When you're sitting down with the seller and the seller says, well, what is a memorandum? And what does that mean? You could say, well, I'm in a cloud title and I'm going to keep every other knucklehead wholesaler from buying this house from me because I got a great killer deal on it. You could say that, but that's not the line. The line is this, and I want you guys to write this down. Well, Tina, let's say the seller's name is, well, Tina, a memorandum basically lets the world know how serious I am about buying your property. I'm so serious about my commitment to you that I'm going to record this on the county recorder's website so that everybody knows that I'm going to fulfill my obligation that I set forth in this purchase contract. That is what a memorandum is. And it lets other investors know that you and I are already in an agreement and that they're not going to bother you. All these people texting you and calling you and all that kind of stuff. Now, that's not entirely true because people are going to call her and blow her up entirely, but you can choose to tell them that part or not. It doesn't matter. But the line is, I am so serious and committed to my obligation that we set forth in this purchase contract. I'm going to let the world know by filing this document at the county recorder's office. That's the line. Write it down. That's the way you explain to a seller why you are filing a memorandum. Now, a really good question I have for Brent.
Yep.
Brent, do you tell and advise your TTP students? Because I'm kind of conflicted on this.
Sure.
Do you tell your TTP students to file a memorandum on every single contract they sign?
I don't, but you know what? Market conditions are getting kind of wild in some markets. I think that it's appropriate in some of those markets that are going really, really, really aggressive. And there's some bad actors, that are kind of sneaking around trying to go backdoor. I think that if you're running into that, you can have those conversations. And I think, just like Sean was saying, if you add it as part of the language in the contract and you have it when you're signing the purchase contract, you're going to have a better relationship with that seller. Everything's going to be out in the open, and that's your opportunity to say that we're committed, right? Like I want you 100% confident in the price and terms and working with me. Are you? Yes. Great. Then it shouldn't be a problem getting everything signed and everything really smooth. So at this point I don't, but I think this is a better way to go. I really do. I think people want to tiptoe because maybe this is their first time really putting together a contract and getting in front of somebody for a lot of brand new wholesalers. So it feels very, like you're on foreign territory there. You're a little bit like you want to walk on eggshells so that you don't screw it up. But what I'm saying is if you go there confidently and use that line that you just said, well, Susan, this memorandum lets the world know how serious I am about buying your property. I think that's fantastic. And it puts all the benefit on that seller. And I just, right now, Pace, in our market, I get, maybe once or twice a month, just regular people out there coming to me and saying, hey, this is what's happening to my dad and my uncle and my cousin and my sister and this, and they filed this memorandum thing and they didn't really know. They signed a contract, but they didn't really know what they were doing, or they said they needed to sign this to see if the title was really in my name, like just scammy stuff. I think that this shows a next level professionalism, and I think that you're going to have more security in those deals that you actually lock up, and you're not going to feel like you're like, just, hey, sign this real quick. Okay. Yeah, I got the deal. Let's go sell it and make some money. You go through it and explain it, and you feel, and that they're going to stick with you.
So Jamil,
I've got some questions.
Yeah. Can I ask one question to you, Jamil, specifically for your business? I'm super curious about this. How often are you guys, because you guys are doing more wholesale deals than anybody, and you guys are growing and growing like freaking wildfire. Are you guys running into knucklehead wholesalers on contracts that they filed a memorandum 6 months ago or 2 years ago or something like that you have to deal with?
All the time. All the time. And that's actually something that I wanted to talk to Sean about.
Same
I just want to use your government name for a moment. But Sean, Mr. St. Clair, Mr. Sean St. Clair, it's an honor to have you here. You're a legend in this space. You do a lot of great work. So many people have amazing things to say about you. So congratulations for being top notch in this space of legalities for real estate investors. So this whole concept of memorandums, first to answer your question, Pace, how many do we file? Very few. And why is that? Why are we not filing memorandums? We don't file them because we truly don't believe in them. The reason we don't believe in them is when a seller is at a point where they don't want to do business with you, you've lost rapport. You didn't do the job you were supposed to do in keeping that seller committed to you. And that's a failure on your part. Now, of course, you can always go and communicate with a seller and tell them, look, we're in a contract and you can't just avoid selling me the property because we're in a contract. Here's the thing. How often are you going to litigate that? And that's just it. Look, here's what I'm not. I'm not teeth. I'm a bite. So I don't show teeth. And I think memorandums are teeth. Truly. Memorandums are teeth. That in the terms of instruments and what they do, they accomplish teeth. They don't accomplish a bite. And why I don't like them very much is because of that same thing you just discussed, Pace, is that we've got wholesalers out there filing memorandums on every contract that they lock up, but they forget to take them off. They forget to take them off, not just 1 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times. 10 out of 10 times when a wholesaler is unsuccessful in selling their deal and they can't close on the property themselves with it, which is an entirely improper intent in the first place, okay? When you're writing purchase contracts direct to seller and you're giving people offers of hundreds of thousands of dollars for their property and you've got $9 in the bank, there's an issue there, okay? But we're not getting into that today. We're getting into the how appropriate a memorandum is. What ends up happening is that same wholesaler that only had $9 in the bank, didn't have the intention to close, now has filed a memorandum, and that instrument has clouded title, and now we have to do all of this stuff to try to unravel it. And so the thing is that if I'm going to use a document that's going to have some enforcement behind it, I'm going to enforce it. I've not seen anybody litigate these memorandums. Sean, my first question to you is, how often do you see these enforced? How often do you see them litigated?
It generally doesn't end up with litigation. So we normally will send a demand letter and explain the wrongful nature of the conduct, and that generally results in the release, because the statute not only says that, hey, look, if you record the memorandum, the minute you record it, boom, $5,000 in statutory damages or triple the actual damages plus attorney's fees. The statute goes on and says that anybody named in a memorandum, so anybody that signs the memorandum on behalf of their LLC, for example, right? Because an LLC can only act through an individual at some point. I mean, some human has to take responsibility for that. It says if that person doesn't release it within 20 days of the demand, now they're liable for $1,000 in statutory damages or triple the actual damages plus attorney's fees. So they have 20 days. So now you've taken a matter that you would normally pursue against an LLC, and everyone's like, well, it's LLC, limited liability, I'm, corporate shield. Now you're saying, no. Now you personally are liable and on the hook because you signed this and then cause it to be released within that 20-day window.
So there's a huge potential for liability for incorrectly handling this instrument and not dealing with removing them if you cancel that transaction.
Correct. And I have a solution to what your concern is as far as removing them. So the contracts that I put together, not only have a memorandum attached to them, but they have a release attached to them. And they say that if I'm going to go and record a memorandum, I'm going to go then and deliver to the title company a signed release. And if this transaction does not come to fruition, the title company is instructed to go forward and record this release. And it specifically instructs the title company in the purchase contract that it's authorized to record the release if the buyer doesn't perform.
Awesome. I have seen so many really sad stories, Pace, and I know you have too, because we've had a lot of conversations about these, where you get these old ladies that have people show up at their doors.
Yep.
And they get them to sign, hey, I'm going to go get a payoff from a bank. I'm going to go find out how much you're behind on your mortgage. Go sign this payoff for me. And then guess what they end up doing? Filing a memorandum. And then they just sit and wait. They sit and wait. And then guys like you, guys like me, guys like Brent, actual real business people that are trying to do this at a high level, that actually can perform and can close on deals, are then having to pay what I would constitute as extortion money to the turkeys that are out there filing these documents incorrectly. And, that's the reason why I have a disdain for them, because I'm not seeing enough people handling the removal of the memorandums appropriately. Yeah. Every memorandum I've ever seen recorded has stayed on and not been properly removed. Sean, would you agree that 9 out of 10 times or 10 out of 10 times that's the case?
With anybody that I don't work with, let's put it that way. With anybody I don't work with, yes, absolutely.
So Sean, on the contract that you're going to draft up for Sub 2 and TTP and Astro students, can we put that in there to have an automatic release? Does that automatic release go on the memorandum itself, or does it go in the purchase contract?
Basically the way the purchase contract reads or will read is the buyer has the option to record the memorandum in the form attached as exhibit, B, for example. But then it says, if the buyer chooses to record a memorandum, the buyer shall deliver to the title company the release attached as a fully executed release attached as exhibit C, and that the title company is authorized to record the release if the buyer doesn't perform and the transaction's terminated. Then, the title company it's an instruction to them. They just record it.
Love it. So I hired you. When you've been working with us for a couple of years, you've been a godsend. So anybody that's in Arizona, please look up Sean. And by the way, Sean, we need to make sure that people are aware of this before we wrap up in an hour. What is the name of your Facebook group, and what are you trying to accomplish in that Facebook group? So everybody in here knows.
Yeah. So the name of the Facebook group is Real Estate Investor Legal. And the goal is to connect real estate investors nationwide with attorneys nationwide who have experience in handling their matters.
Thank you, Sean.
I receive calls on a regular basis from, people in your group, Pace, or others that I've connected with in the real estate investor community saying, hey, I have this transaction in this state. I need some help. I need an attorney. Can you help me? And it's a struggle. I could find them a real estate attorney, but a real estate attorney doesn't mean that, they have experience working with, investors, that they understand wholesale, that they understand creative finance, those types of issues. And so my goal is to basically have attorneys from all 50 states in this group who can then collaborate with real estate investors.
Awesome. Love it. So guys, if you're not aware of that, and Sean, I know I mentioned this to you before, but Rochelle Jarvis, the owner of Constant Close, who you've done transactions with because she's my transaction coordinator, we have at Constant Close closed so many contracts in every single state. We've now successfully closed a sub 2 contract in every single state, including Alaska and all the places that you would never think we would ever close a transaction. So I'm going to have her and you connect so she can bring all the title companies and all the closing attorneys to your Facebook group in just a massive tidal wave of value, because you are so unbelievable. Nobody's thought about putting that freaking Facebook group together. My gosh, thank you so much for doing that.
It's called Real Estate Investing Legal, Sean.
Real estate investor legal.
Investor. Love it.
Can you
So
put that in the chat for everybody?
yes,
Guys, you need to go. Yeah, get into that link. Go there now. Join it. Well, not now. You know, stay tuned. But then after this.
So Jean Duray says, is there any way to find out in advance if there was a memorandum filed before? So right now, let's say I'm talking to a seller and the seller just sounds too good to be true, right? Sounds too good to be true. I'm like, man, this sounds too good to be true. Is there a way, let's say in Arizona, because you understand Arizona, is there a way I can go to a county recorder's office or something like that right now and see if a memorandum has been filed on a property?
So here in Maricopa, we have one of the best recording systems and recorder offices in the nation, in my opinion. You could pretty much find anything. You start getting outside of Maricopa County, and some counties are better than others, and I imagine that's true nationwide. But what I recommend is build relationships with title companies, and get to know those title companies. Use those title companies on a regular basis, so that if you have a suspicion or you want to, see what's going on with the property, you can call them. And what you want to do is ask them for a condition of title report. And if you get that condition of title report, that'll tell you if a memorandum's been recorded. Some title companies will charge you, $75 to $150 for it, depending on your relationship. Some might provide it as a courtesy. It just depends.
Okay, so we call that, a lot of people call that a prelim. What did you just call it, Sean?
A condition of title report.
A condition of title report, or a title report, prelim report. It's called 100 different things. Essentially what it is when you open escrow, so you get the contract from the seller, you can go down to escrow and they'll pull a preliminary title report and they'll find every lien, every encumbrance, every issue that is on that property. Because earlier, Sean alluded to something called they're trying to sell an insurance product. That's what title companies do, guys. Title companies actually don't close transactions. Escrow officers are the ones that close the transaction, and the title company sells you an insurance product to make sure that the transaction was done properly and has clear title. So the title company, before you close that transaction, will pull a preliminary title report, and on that, sometimes it's 15 pages long, you will see if there's a memorandum, an IRS lien, a child support lien, a mechanics lien, whatever. And I've never been charged for those, but I haven't done a deal personally in every individual state. So I imagine there's some states, some title companies, some closing attorneys that want to charge for that because it does take some time, energy, and resources to do that. So there's your answer, Jean. The answer is yes, you can find out ahead of time. That's the best way to do it. In Phoenix, you can go to the recorder's office and see every document that's recorded against the property. But like Sean said, we have one of the best systems in the United States, and I can't imagine it's like that in Birmingham, Alabama.
Sean, I have another question. If you paste there, is that all right? Can I hop in here real quick? So, Sean, I heard through some conversations with different investor groups that have been dealing with some unsavory characters that have been filing memorandums in the state of Arizona. And my understanding is that the Attorney General is now looking at the memorandums that have been filed on properties, ones that have had their expiration dates well past, and current ones as well. So it's always an interesting thing when the Attorney General gets involved in something that's an issue, probably a hot topic, and maybe a hot burner. Would you, having as much as experience as you have in this state of real estate instruments, real estate law, when the Attorney General gets involved, how certain should you be when you're utilizing an instrument like a memorandum?
You better be darn certain that you know what you're doing and you're doing it right, because it is an issue. The powers that be are taking notice of it. And like I said, it's a misdemeanor, not to mention what you brought up, Jamil, which is a good point. The investor with $9 in their pocket that really don't have the intent or the means to close the transaction. In Arizona, we have a case called Lombardo versus Albu. And in that case, both the buyer and real estate agent representing the buyer were sued for negligence, breach of the covenant of good faith and fair dealing, non-disclosure, those types of issues, because they didn't inform the seller, who was in foreclosure and was about to lose their house in foreclosure, a house with equity. So the seller had equity, but they were cash poor, right? They couldn't pay their mortgage. So they're in foreclosure. Buyer comes along. The husband's credit is shot. He has a prior bankruptcy. So they decide to write the purchase contract in the name of the wife, hoping that the lender wouldn't figure out what's going on. Nobody discloses this to the seller. And of course, you know what happens, right? Buyer doesn't perform because the lender says, well, we're not going to, fund. And the seller loses the property in foreclosure and then sues the buyer and the buyer's agent. And the court in that case, I'll read you some language here, right? That this is word for word from that case. It says the buyer cannot present himself as a ready, willing, and able buyer if he knows that there is a significant risk that the deal will never close because of his inability to perform. This would violate the buyer's duty to deal fairly under the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets back to what you're talking about is, you have people that are entering into contracts hoping that they can perform, recording memorandums, clouding title, and then basically extorting money, 2 years later or a year later. Yeah, the attorney general, if this starts in which it's happening, is going in record number. Yeah, I mean, I could see the attorney general becoming involved and pursuing those types of claims.
Truly, it's the reason why I have an issue with the practice in itself, because it's not being handled appropriately. Look, guys, Pace, Brent, both of you guys are well aware of this because of our prominence in the coaching space of this business model. But look, I've trained over 2,000 people how to run comps on deals. Okay, those 2,000 people, how many of them are actually running those comps on deals? Right? Not everybody does everything they're taught. They're not. Not everybody has done what they're taught. So we're over here talking about how you systematically do this correctly. How many people are going to remember that they've got to use the appropriate document, that they got to remove the memorandum, on a property that they're going to cancel, right? How often do you think these things are going to come up? And when you have these characters that are then sending emails, Robin Hurt was just in the comments talking about a real estate agent who sent her an email on a well-expired memorandum requesting a $10,000 fee to have it removed. Pace, you've been a victim of this same extortion, right? I think that's what ends up happening is when people create leverage for themselves with documents of this nature, it opens the door to some very predatory practices. And that's why I think the Attorney General is involved. And again, I'm really, 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 really hesitant to use memorandums. I think that there's better ways to ensure that you're going to create or get a deal done. Just my 2 cents.
Question on the screen right there, Sean, if you want to read that and answer that about what you just read.
Yeah. So the contract provides and there's acknowledgments that normally you have the seller sign and disclosures and things like that, where you're disclosing, hey, look, I'm going to be assigning this, and I can assign it, those types of things. And as long as you have, some proper disclosures, I don't think the language that I read, jeopardizes wholesaling in total. But the point I think that we're making here is if you can't perform and you don't perform, don't hold the property hostage. Don't cloud the title.
There you go.
We're saying, yeah.
That's it.
That's
Look,
it.
wholesaling is prospecting. Wholesaling can be speculation, right? And that is already inherently a part of the business model. Why then create more opportunity or more ways to really jam up a seller through instruments that are being incorrectly used, so that you just tarnish the business model and the name of what we do even further? I mean, it's this whole thing, the extortion from memorandums, that has so many people in the public up in arms about having dealt with a wholesaler. It's real.
So, Rhonda, just to clarify this, Jamil, you want to answer this question real quick? It's kind of in the same line of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, Rhonda, that's a fantastic question. Rhonda's question is, are you saying that if a wholesaler doesn't have enough money to pay cash for every property that they find and assign, that they're doing something wrong? No, Rhonda, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you need to have access to the means. So the entire concept of squatting up is working with people that may have the means, right? Working with private money lenders, working with hard money lenders, having access to these instruments that give you the possibility of being able to close. So no, Rhonda, you don't have to have the cash in the bank. And I made the comment of only has $9 in the bank, and that maybe is what threw you in that thought process, Rhonda. So my apologies. It wasn't about how much money you have in the bank. It has to do with your intent, right? It's truly about what you're intending to do. If you're solely writing an offer on a property to flip the contract, then that's something you've got to talk about. But if the deal is good enough that you could possibly close on it, that you might bring a private money lender to the table and maybe fix and flip the property yourself, that you might bring your mentor, Brent, Pace, or myself in as a private lender to help you do the deal, that you might partner with another really experienced rehabber in town and maybe they'll help you do the deal. There's so many exit strategies that we talk about. There's so many ways to legitimize your offer. And so I don't think you need to get over complicated with respect to, I don't have the money to actually close on this, because there's so many different means that can give you the finances that you would require to do the deal. But I think that when we add on top of it this whole idea of memorandums, because they create a rigid maze for a seller to have to then navigate once you cancel a deal. If you do cancel a deal and the deal doesn't close, that is a problem. That is the problem that I'm trying to bring some air to.
And listen, Jamil, you and Pace have traveled the country talking about squatting up. I fortunately get every Monday to join in this tornado of squatting up and finding people and having, listen, there are hard money lenders. There are private money lenders that'll lend 100% on the deal if it's right. There are people that you can squat up and partner with that have, when I started out, when we were bidding at auction in 2008, I was approached from a gentleman that just sold his company for $20 million. He was bored and he wanted to put the money somewhere. That was my business partner. Like that you just squat up. That's what we're talking about on this show, is finding the means, having access to those funds. If you're going in there as the buyer, you better have access to those funds. If you go in there and you say, hey, listen, I'm not going to buy this, but I got a bunch of people I'd like to put it in front of, and you have it disclosed. I don't know. You could ask Sean. I mean, as long as the seller knows what's going on and it's disclosed and it's put in there and it's in writing, that's a whole different ballgame. But just going around and putting memorandums on properties because you went to somebody's house, got a contract signed one time, and then you ghosted the seller for the next 2 weeks and you didn't respond to them and you didn't do anything as you're trying to sell the property. And then all of a sudden the seller feels like they've been abandoned. They've got somebody else knocking on their door behind you. They want to work with this friendly person and they don't want to work with you because you're not communicating with them. And they want to get out of them. And then you slap a memorandum on them and it's gross. It's just gross. And it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up. And whether it be the attorney general, whether it be your reputation in the marketplace, whether it be whatever it is, it's going to catch up.
Okay, so let's say I file. I don't like the deal that we originally opened up with. I had a couple of comments in the side chat saying, "Well, when are we going to get to the story that Pace started with?" Well, unfortunately, I can't tell you a whole story without you guys understanding what a memorandum is. And so we went through and we explained now what a memorandum is. We explained the proper way of filing a memorandum, when you should file a memorandum, and what that documentation should look like. Okay, now we've established that. So on this property that I purchased 2 years ago, I contracted it 2 years ago. Why did it take so long to come to fruition? Is because we had to take the estate through probate. So I paid for the probate, which cost $5,000. I hired Rylas Dana, who is actually a friend of Sean St. Clair's as well, and friend of the show. He was on here a couple of weeks ago. Hired him, went through probate. Once probate was finalized, we actually purchased the property through the appropriate person, the personal representative that's now named on the contract, and we have a valid contract. We go to close escrow, and our title company says, oh, there's a memorandum on the property that was signed just a couple of months ago. So my wife calls me. She's my real estate agent. And she says, Pace, what do you want me to do? And I said, what I should have started doing 7 years ago. Just call the attorney. I don't have 5 seconds to deal with this. Call the attorney. And so she wrote an email to Sean St. Clair. And Sean, what did you do on this particular transaction? And what did we find out? And I know you weren't the one that physically worked on it, but somebody in your office did. Can you give us an understanding? If I'm a brand new investor, I have the intent of closing on a transaction, and I find a memorandum that's standing in my way, what can I do? And what did you do on this particular transaction in the last 30 days?
Well, without getting into the specifics on your transaction, I'll answer what do you do in the situation of if you end up trying to close and there's a memorandum, which is you look to see, did they have the lawful authority to record the memorandum? If they didn't have the lawful authority, then the next step would be to send the demand letter so that you start that 20 days that we discussed running. So you want to send that demand letter out so that the clock starts ticking on those 20 days. And then if the wholesaler or the investor is wise, they will release the memorandum during those 20 days and you can move forward with closing.
Do you find that most wholesalers that have a memorandum will respond to a demand letter and release that memorandum within that 20-day period?
I have found that the majority who are made aware of the unlawful nature of their conduct will. Not to say everyone will, but the majority, in our experience, will respond and release because the liability just kind of adds up, on top of itself. And so, look, there's some wholesalers out there, and I wouldn't even call them wholesalers because their whole business model is to record memorandums and be paid on those memorandums. But there's some who understand what they're doing is, unscrupulous, and they go forward and do it. There's others who truly believe and not truly believe, who don't truly understand the implications of recording a memorandum, who are just there recording it to try to, protect their interest in the transaction, but they don't understand the lawful steps that need to be taken in order to record it. And so when it's brought to those wholesalers' attention, normally it's, mea culpa, will record the release. The ones that are unscrupulous and know what they're doing and know that what they're doing is wrong, they're a little more gutsy and they aren't as likely to release.
I've seen a wholesaler legit go to a seller, tell a seller that they would give them this crazy number that the seller originally wanted for a price. So let's just say the deal is only worth 200, and as a wholesaler, you need to buy it at 140, call it, right? So say you want to offer 140. I've seen some wholesalers go and give that seller 200, not close, file a memorandum, sit back, wait for the phone to ring, and try to cash a $10,000 check.
Yep.
Really good question here from Scott Jenkins. Super smart guy, Scott Jenkins. I believe he's an Astro student and a Sub-2 student. Super smart guy, crushes it, does a lot of deals. I'm on his buyers list, so the dude gets a lot of deals. Scott Jenkins says, I assume a demand letter from an attorney carries more weight than doing it yourself. Guys, this is my personal experience. For the few $100s it costs to have an attorney send out a letter or an email or make a phone call for you, it is one of the best investments you can ever make. Number one, you don't have the anxiety. Number two, it does come from the letterhead of an attorney. And number three, it's very inexpensive to actually go that route. So whenever we have a demand letter, yes, we do hire an attorney. It's as simple as an email. It's not like we have to go through and sit down at their law office and explain the whole deal. We just say, hey, Sean, we found a memorandum. Is it like thousands of dollars to send out a demand letter, Sean?
No, it's less than 1,000.
Less than 1,000. Okay. 900 guys. It's $999.
I can see Sean's wheels turning like, wait, I don't want to, he doesn't want to throw his attorney friends under the bus, but
come on.
I've had a demand letter done in $200. So
whoa.
Yeah. 200 to 1,000. We'll leave it there.
Jamil, do you ever use a memorandum?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So I think
we have used. So under very, very, very strict circumstances. So we will file a memorandum once we typically, when we're direct to seller on deals and it happens, because we're working through an agent, and that's considered direct to seller in our books. Just because there's an agent fiduciary in the way doesn't mean we're not direct to a seller. So when we're direct to a seller through a real estate agent and we start to see the deal is going a little bit slow, right? We always have the language in our contract that we intend to file a memorandum. We very rarely exercise it, but it's there. And if we start to see that things are getting a little bit squirrely, that they're not responding to title, that we did get a tremendous deal or we did make a tremendous buy on a certain house, and we get information from the real estate agent themselves that their seller is no longer responding to them, and they're fearful that they may have gone in and started talking to another buyer, that at that point we will go and record the memorandum, because now we know that we have a seller who's going to try to get out of their contractual obligation with us. Of course, we're going to try to open up the doors of rapport and the doors of conversation to see what can we do. Look, here's the thing. I'm never litigating a memorandum, ever. Litigating anything is $50,000 minimum. Would you agree, Sean? Full litigation.
If the seller contests and, really puts up a fight, it can start getting expensive. But if you're going to pursue a specific performance action, a lot of times it's the service of the complaint on the seller where they realize, wait a minute, this buyer means business, and they want this property and they plan to perform on this property, and I can't just go and, sell it to somebody else. At that point, the negotiation process begins. Right. And I do want to comment on that. And the way you're handling it, Jamil, is perfect, because you're kind of looking at the transaction as it's flowing and you're saying, hey, things are getting a little squirrely here. Let's get that memorandum on file so that, the buyer's after me or any other buyer knows I'm out there and I'm involved and that type of thing. But if the escrow date comes and goes, don't just sit on it. If you want that property, go in and file your specific performance action, record your list pendants, and get the ball rolling. Don't just sit there waiting for 2 years, hoping that at some further time they're gonna try to sell it. If you want it, go get it. Don't sit around and hang out and wait, hoping for that payment. That's where I think that's the problem that everyone has, right? Is like, you're just hanging out, you're doing nothing, you're sitting on your rights. And then when somebody who's actually going to perform comes forward, it's like, where's my money?
Right. And it's truly, especially in those circumstances where people are in pre-foreclosure and they're sitting on that memorandum, they're sitting on that, they're waiting. It's a ticking time bomb, and they're that's somebody's house, that's somebody's life. That's someone's life, and I'm reading in the comments that there's a group out in Phoenix. There's a group out in Phoenix probably the same group you guys are dealing with. These guys
Yeah,
are
you and I
turkeys.
know them really well. We actually
I know.
we have a nickname for these people. We
Yes.
know them by name. We know their company name. We know the exact type of houses they target, the type of sellers they target.
I actually know that one of them watches this show. So we're on to you guys. Thanks for being a fan and for the support, but you suck. You suck. And you should stop doing it.
Yeah, they for a long time we were running a door knocking team, a pretty sizable door knocking team before COVID. And we would run into probably 50% of our contracts would already have a previous contract with this group. And all they did was they asked the seller, what is the price that we have to get this house under contract for in order to get you to sign with us? I mean, it'd be sometimes $50,000, $70,000 over ARV, not over what they should buy it as a wholesaler.
Yep.
And they would take it and they would just file memorandum. And then unsuspecting wholesalers that are brand new, watching YouTube to learn, they come along, they get a contract at the appropriate price, they open escrow, and then they find out there's this memorandum. They go and pay these guys off to the tune of $5,000 to $10,000 to get rid of the memorandum. Because one, the wholesaler that is the good wholesaler didn't know you can simply hire a Sean St. Clair or somebody similar in your local state. By the way, get on his Facebook group so you can find the right attorneys. Guys, please put the link. Kelly, if you're watching right now, Kelly or Wenny, if you guys are watching, please put his Facebook group in the side chat one more time for everybody. But you can get these memorandums released when you show that they didn't have grounds to do it. But it is so common here in Arizona. I actually see Doc J right here in the comments.
Yeah, can you put him up there? I love this. He's been really active today, and he's put some really good stuff in there. I really think, this is a good question to talk to the title companies that you're working with or the closing attorneys that you're working with and just say, how do you handle memorandums? When this pops up, what do you look for? What is the process? And what are you looking for to insure this property and get this done? That'd be a really interesting conversation with the escrow and title company and closing attorneys to just see what is their, are they stuck? Are they like, our company policy is that has to be removed before we can insure this property? Or is it something that they'll actually do, dig into it and see if it's something that has legs? It's a good question.
So we've been using Sean St. Clair's terminology in our contracts for quite some time. Okay. And actually Steve Trang is who introduced me to Sean St. Clair a couple of years back. Sean would go to Steve Trang's meetups here, his famous meetups. You get 400 people at these things. I don't know if Steve's going to start those back up, but that was a lot of fun. So I meet Sean. We have Sean draft all of our documents, and I go and get a contract pretty quickly after I get those contracts from Sean with the memorandum terminology and all of those things done properly. I go get a contract. The seller ghosts me. So we file a memorandum. And I didn't hear anything from that seller for 2 years. And then I get a call from an attorney saying my memorandum is frivolous and all this kind of stuff. And I said, did you even look at my memorandum? Did you even look at my purchase contract? Did you even look at the documentation? Because it is fully legit. And he goes, actually, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't, because there's so many times that the answer is that you knucklehead wholesalers don't do anything properly. So I just assumed you were another knucklehead. They had to pay me off $12,500, which was my assignment fee, if I had purchased it at that time. So I am grateful to know that my memorandum, even though the close of escrow was not performed on by me, that memorandum was not frivolous, even though the date had passed. Because I had a right on that property. It was the seller that took advantage of me and tried to get a higher price, not the other way around. So Doc J makes a really good point, but there are really good wholesalers that are trying to do things properly and hiring attorneys and making sure the seller is aware of the memorandum. That I do love having a memorandum when a seller ghosts me, because I know that they took advantage of me, not the other way around, and that I should be paid for the time, energy, and the losses of what I could have made on that deal if they fulfilled their obligation. So does a memorandum just magically become null and void just because the close of escrow date?
It depends on the language of your purchase contract.
That's it.
So,
Yep.
and we had this discussion last week on your Zoom, Pace. The magic 2 words, cure notice. So if the contract contains a cure notice, then the contract does not automatically expire as of the date of the close of escrow. Instead, it requires action by one of the 2 parties to issue a cure notice to the other party saying you aren't performing, and if you don't perform within this time period, we're done or you're in breach. So if the language of the contract has a cure notice, which Pace yours does, if the language of the contract has a cure notice, then the contract doesn't expire if the seller doesn't perform by the close of escrow date. Frankly, it doesn't even expire if the buyer doesn't perform by the close of escrow date. It expires after a cure notice has been issued and there's still no performance.
Well, Sean,
let's talk about what a cure notice is, because there's a lot of people in here that don't know what a cure notice is. And I would say a cure notice is in one of the top best tools to ever have in your pocket when you're in real estate. And I imagine Jamil and Brent use cure notices frequently in their business.
It's very common in most realtor contracts. Most realtor contracts have a cure notice.
Yeah. Now, the 3-page wholesaler contracts typically don't, that I see. I've seen really good ones that are done properly do. But if you're going down and just downloading free contracts, just double check and make sure that you have a cure notice. What that means is what Sean's going to explain. What is a cure notice, Sean?
A cure notice basically means that there's no automatic or immediate breach of a contract. That if one party is acting in a manner that the other side believes is a breach of the contract, that in order for the breach to be actually enforceable, then the other side has to send a notice and give a certain time period, which the contract says what that time period is, for the party to perform. So for example, if the seller basically states, I'm not going to close escrow, then you as the buyer, in order for there to be a breach, you would send out the cure notice and say you have 10 days to perform, or 3 days, depending on the language of the contract. Most realtor forms give 3 days. Yeah. I actually like the 10 days, not dealing with memorandums or anything, but dealing with assignments. I prefer to have the 10 days. But you have 3, 10 days, whatever you choose to perform. And if you don't perform in that time period, seller, now you're in breach. And now I have a right to go and file a lawsuit for damages or specific performance or something like that. Likewise, if you have a buyer that's not performing, then the seller sends a cure notice to the buyer, and then the buyer has 3 days or 10 days to perform. And if the buyer doesn't perform, then the seller can cancel the contract at that point. So if you have a close of escrow date, but the purchase contract has a cure notice, and that close of escrow date comes and goes, but the seller never sends a cure and says, hey, buyer, you need to buy it, then that contract's still alive. In fact, I've worked with clients who, a year and a half later come to me and say, wait a minute, why is this still an issue? I thought, we were over and done. The close of escrow expired. And I look at it, well, did you ever send a cure notice? Well, no. So, a year and a half later, we're sending a cure notice.
Jamil, how has a cure notice helped save your butt in transactions?
Oh my gosh. So buyer ends up wiring a little bit late, and we pass close of escrow, and you've got an agent who's losing their mind because they need to pay rent. So they're really looking for their commission check, and they rile their seller up. And now they want to cancel, but they can't because the cure period give us more time. In fact, I've had a situation where a buyer, and you know what, I'm not going to comment on this strategy, but the buyer, we had a deal, it was going to close on I think the 28th or whatever of the month. The buyer knew he wasn't going to be able to close until the 30th. He knew it because he had another deal closing. He was going to use the funds from that deal that was closing to close this one up. So he rode the cure. He rode the cure period, and knowing that he had 3 days to perform and rectify his breach of contract. So he wrote the cure, and then on the final day wired in the money, and the deal closed, and the seller couldn't get out of the deal. It had to move forward as possible. So a cure can be really, really helpful to a buyer that needs a little bit more time. A cure can be really helpful to a seller to understand what is their buyer intending to do, right? It also, the one thing I've noticed is that if you do issue a cure and Alex Cifelli, a lovely human being, she had mentioned that, sellers do some squirrely stuff.
Yep.
Right? They do some really squirrely stuff sometimes. And she's saying, I'm seeing that, memorandums are getting a bad rap here, but what about those people? I think when you got a seller who's just flat out lied to you and they've gone and taken another offer from somebody else because greed got in the way, sue them. But the other thing that you can do is renegotiate, right? I've had suing somebody costs thousands and thousands of dollars. Renegotiating might only cost you a few $1,000s. Why not try? Why not try to figure it out? And a cure period gives you the opportunity to have an honest conversation because the days are counting, right? And so that's how a cure period's helped us pace. It gave us extra time on a deal, allowed us to close a little bit late, and especially when we're wholesaling and we've got buyers and our buyer is not as responsive as we want them to be. And we know that they're going to perform, but they're just busy out doing life.
Or they have a lender that moves a little bit slow.
Or the lender moves a little slow.
Or you have like a wire cutoff, right? That's another big thing is a lot of people don't talk about is like I've done deals with Jamil, a lot of deals with Jamil, and we'll wire money for a deal at 2:15 in the afternoon, but it misses the wire cutoff. So the title company doesn't receive that money. And the seller might be freaking out, like, why haven't you closed escrow, canceled the contract? But at the end of the day, because we have an extra 3, but in my contract, I have a 10-day cure notice, which means the seller has to give me 10 extra days. And the reason it's called a cure is because my lack of closing escrow is a plague on that contract. I have put a plague on this contract, and the seller has to tell me to cure that plague by closing escrow. And so that's why we call it a cure notice. Cure your plague, cure your problem that you caused on this contract. So I actually do like it. Is there a downside to a cure notice, Sean?
The downside is to the extent that you as the buyer want to force the seller's hand and have them close. If you make a 10-day cure notice, now you're waiting 10 days. The reason why I like the 10-day notice is for your, what I would call your out of control daisy chains, where, no one seems to know the end buyer and, they're not performing. I like my assignments to basically state, hey, buyer, either you perform on this date or you don't, and contract rights revert. Now you can always amend that. You have somebody who, like you said, Jamil, you had a buyer that was waiting for another transaction to close. You knew that. You can always say, hey, yeah, we'll amend that. We'll fix that, But I, as the original party to the contract, I would want the assignment to basically say, hey, look, it terminates if you don't perform by the original close of escrow. You don't have the benefit of the cure. I have the benefit of the cure. So if you can't perform, we're done. Contract rights revert to me, and now I have 10 days to fix this issue.
Can I just reiterate that for everybody? It's so well done. I just want to redo that one more time because that's so critically important for people to understand. In your purchase contract between you and your seller, you should have a cure notice. Okay. It protects you. It protects the seller. It's all around a great situation to have. Just like Jamil talked about how it saved his bacon multiple times. It saved my bacon multiple times for whatever reason. Okay. However, when you assign your contract, you are assigning every single word of that contract unless you say otherwise. So when you have an assignment contract, you want to state in your assignment contract, which is another document that Sean is creating for us. The assignment contract that Sean is creating for us states that my buyer, the person I'm assigning my contract to, does not get a cure notice. They do not have the ability to, the second you don't close escrow, you have breached. I do not have to cure you. You have breached, which then gives me the time to go back to the drawing board and find another buyer without having to cure the person I assigned the deal to. So guys, make sure you write that down. You want a cure notice between you and your seller, but you don't want to give your buyer a cure notice. You want to make sure your assignment does not allow them to have every right under the contract of which you are assigning. Is that properly said, Sean?
Right on the money.
Cool. So the contract that we're having Sean draft, I've already had Sean in the works. He's been super busy doing freaking working Saturdays, man. What attorney goes and does speaking engagements on Saturday? You're amazing. But at some point in the next couple of weeks, when Sean gets a chance, he's going to redraft a 5-page or so wholesale contract with the memorandum language, with the memorandum attached, the addendum A, or what do we call it? I'm sorry.
Exhibit B or A, or
Exhibit A or B. And then we're also going to have him redraft the assignment contract so that it states that we have the ability to have a cure notice between us and the seller, but our buyer does not. So we will give that access to all Astro students, all TTP students, all Sub 2 students will get a copy of that contract drafted from the golden hand of Sean St. Clair himself.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Tons of really good questions. Dude, do you guys see how many people are loving this episode?
I have a question for you, Sean.
Yeah.
So we've had some questions in here on how to work closer with attorneys, and I think for a lot of people that are in the business, first getting started in wholesaling, it's a little bit of a daunting situation to have a conversation with somebody who's got a law degree, right? You're so educated. You've got degrees and all this knowledge behind you, and we're just getting started in the business. So, Sean, how do you suggest that the audience of Wholesale Hotline go out and establish relationships with real estate attorneys? If not yourself, others. What would be the number one way for somebody to get the attention of a real estate attorney to take them seriously and help them out?
So there's a couple of ways. I know I'm not the only one that's active in real estate investor groups and meetups and things like that. And so, become involved in those types of events. Generally, there'll be an attorney there, and you can meet them, talk to them, pick their brain, see, if there's somebody that you can work with. The second way is to be a go-giver with the attorney. There are attorneys that do probates, like our firm does probates. Rylas Dana does probates. There's attorneys throughout the country that do probates. Start using them and sending them your transactions that need probates. Send them some work. Establish that type of relationship, and then third, go and pay for an hour of their time and sit down and show them your contract. Show them, your business structure. You have an hour, you're paying for it. So, show them everything that you have and get their opinion and establish that. Our firm, for example, what we do with our clients is we open what we call general matters files. I don't ask for a retainer. I don't require anything up front. We open the general matters file and then we bill on, our regular invoicing schedule. Some months, I don't bill certain general matters files because they haven't needed my services. Other times, they'll call and have a question on a transaction, and I'll talk to them for, 20 minutes and then put my time down, and then they'll get a small invoice at that point for that time. But it's just there and it's open and it's available for them to use as they need, throughout the process. And so most attorneys will work like that and open a general matters file and just keep it open, and you use it as you need it.
Awesome.
What would you say, Jamil and Pace, in your experience, about how many deals on average does an attorney get involved with? You know what I mean? For our company, it's probably 1 out of 15, I would say. there needs to be something happening, whether it be eviction, whether it be something with probate, whether it be something with a memorandum, very rarely, but I would say that. What about you guys? Do you guys have kind of an idea of, what we can set as an expectation? And just to show everybody that part of your team, part of your board is your real estate attorney. Like, this isn't like wealthy people don't get scared of attorneys. Wealthy people love attorneys. Like, that they're there to protect you. They're there to be part of your team. They're there to do a lot of the work that you don't have the ability nor the experience to do. So don't be scared to add. Especially if you're in Arizona or Georgia. I mean, come on, this is bananas. You better start that right away. But what do you think, guys? Out of how many deals does it get a little bit wiggly where an attorney has to step in?
I would say 1 in maybe 15 to 20 or so, all the way from a couple $100 demand letter to maybe a couple of phone calls to the other party's attorney, to Sean's done a couple evictions for us.
Yep.
He did an eviction for us this year. It was a wonderful one. We had a tenant saran wrap their toilet and played a prank on their boyfriend and recorded the whole thing and put it on TikTok. And her boyfriend pissed all over on TikTok and ruined our floor and all this kind of stuff. And then she turned around and claimed that we were horrible landlords and that her floor was wet. And we screenshotted and recorded her TikTok, and we're actually brought that up in court. So guys, those kinds of things happens. And so it's really nice to have somebody in your corner. I would say that there's not a week that goes by that we don't communicate with Sean St. Clair or somebody at his office. I probably have Sean, what I do, and I've done this in my mentorship, this is the kind of value. I don't give Sean probates, okay? I give Sean a lot of other business. I give Rylas Dana my probates because I have some agreements with him, but Sean St. Clair gets a lot of other business from me. And here's a couple of examples of business I give to Sean. When somebody needs an agreement, like I had a student that wanted a JV agreement between him and another student, I called Sean and I said, Sean, I will pay for this agreement. Will you draft this for my students? Hey, Sean, I have another student that wants an agreement for his door knockers to not hold him liable. Will you draft that document? He has drafted maybe, I don't know, close to 100 documents for me over the last 12 months. My partnership agreement between Matt, Cody, and myself, he's done all of that stuff, guys. It is constantly my favorite bill to pay every single month, because not only do I get the value of learning and paying for it, I look at Sean as a mentor, which is kind of weird. Like Brent just talked about him as one of our board of advisors. 1000% I look at Sean St. Clair as a mentor type, and I'm paying for him to educate me and then in turn bring him tons of business. I would consider Sean a friend and somebody that we do business with. And you guys need to do the same thing with people in your local area. Jamil, what about you?
So I think you're pretty close pace. We are doing, 60-ish, 50, 60-ish deals right now with just the heat of the market and whatnot. And I say we probably talk to our attorney twice a month, right? That's about how often we're going. We've got multiple attorneys on retainer. So for us, our transaction coordinator or anyone can just call an attorney and say, we've got this going on. What do we do? But yeah, it's, I'd say probably every 20 to 25 transactions, you're going to have something where you're going to need some legal advice. And it's great. I mean, I love my relationships with our attorneys. They're the only friend I pay for. But it's worth it. It's so worth it. Just an incredible peace of mind knowing when you have a great attorney in your back, in your corner, taking care of you, advising you correctly, letting you navigate this world of business in an ethical, straightforward manner, but has your back like a bulldog when it's time to come out. That's what you're looking for. And guys like Sean St. Clair are exactly that.
I do have a suggestion for people in the audience. If you guys are new and you're saying, I want a local attorney, because Sean's not licensed everywhere, right? They practice in Arizona and Georgia. And he obviously cares. He wants to be out there helping the community, which is why he built a national Facebook group, for heaven's sakes. But at the end of the day, he can't service everybody. So you need to go to your own individual state. Now, here's an idea for you. Squatting up. Why don't you squat up with 10 other people in your local area and you say, hey guys, let's have a meetup where we all pay a little bit of an attorney's time, 2 hours, and we have an attorney come out and talk about a specific topic so that attorney and us can build a relationship. Pay them. I never have asked Sean to do anything for free. I am so glad to pay him to show up to do anything. The Zoom that we did the other Friday with Inside My Sub 2 Mentorship, I will get a bill for that and I will gladly pay for that. So same thing in your local market. Find a real estate attorney who wants to build their business, somebody who cares about growing their business, and pay them for 2 or 3 hours of their time to come and to do like a lunch and learn at a local title company or a church or a Starbucks for that matter, and get 10 people to fund that. Let's say that it costs $600. 10 people is only $60. Guys, crowdsource your relationship with an attorney and get rid of the $600 and just crowdsource something like that. And attorneys will be glad because now they have 10 clients or 10 future clients that they can set up LLCs for, estate planning, get probate clients, do all sorts of things for, and get paid for it.
And there's a group now. He created a group. I mean,
So
you
good.
could go right into the group and find somebody that is in your local market. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's no excuse not to do it. And I love the idea of crowdsourcing it and getting in there. So everybody, all of a sudden, you're going to start teaming up with people that have the same type of morals, the same type of thoughts, they understand what is the right path to do it. Those are the people that last. I'm telling you, we've seen it for, Pace and Jamil and I have been doing this for 15, 20 years. You see the people come and go like shooting stars. They show up and just explode because they're doing it wrong. You never want to go down that path. Be around the people that are doing it right, and you're gonna have longevity, and that's the whole point. Make the money from this so that you can buy assets, so that you have all these assets piled up and create actual wealth. Well, guess what happens when you have wealth? You need attorneys around you. All right, you need attorneys to protect you. You need attorneys to do what unlimited amount of things. So, start down that way right now. Go to Real Estate Investor Legal Facebook group, join that, find somebody incredible in your market and start that relationship.
One thing I want to say about attorneys as well is that not all attorneys do everything, right? So I'm on a phone call with Sean 2-3 weeks ago. And I say, hey, Sean, I'm going to start raising some capital. I'm going to go put a fund together. I'm going to go build apartment complexes or go build mobile home park communities or whatever. And Sean says, well, I can help you with maybe some syndication stuff, or I can help you with some other things. But if you're going to go the building a fund route, that involves getting a securities attorney involved. And I have a great referral for you of somebody that I've worked with in the past. So now I don't have to go surf through 100 other attorneys. Guys, it is a straight line to some of the best referrals you'll get in anything is just going and getting an attorney. Sean, would you consider yourself a real estate attorney, or are you guys like estate planning, probate, real estate? What would you consider yourself if somebody asks you, what law do you practice?
Our firm has 8 attorneys, so we're pretty broad in the scope of our practice. My practice is all things real estate. And so it could be, it's transactional, all things, transactional real estate, if you will. So, drafting documents, business formations, because I'm helping my real estate investor clients, protect their businesses and their assets and structure properly, things like that. So basically, if it touches real estate, I'm dealing with it. And that's the way I kind of describe it. All things real estate.
Awesome. Pace, you want to take us out of here? 6:30, bro. Pace is frozen.
Oh my gosh. That's the first time I'd ever seen him.
I thought he was messing with me. I thought he was messing. Well, while we're here, that's the interesting thing. He made a rule with Laura that at 6:30 he has to go to dinner. He has to be at the family dinner. So he's gone. But
it's baby making time. Let's go, Pace.
That's right, baby making time. That's it. They gotta get that going. Anyway, Sean, fantastic. Really appreciate it. I mean, it's wonderful having us talk about things, but obviously we're not attorneys, so we're not going to give out legal advice. It's fantastic that you gave us this 90 minutes to sit here and really get a really good perspective on what we should be doing out there and what we shouldn't, and having the contracts prepared for all of our coaching students. So thank you so much. That's absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you guys. It was an honor to be on here. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
And guys, do us a favor. If you got a tremendous amount of value, I did. I can tell you that I got a tremendous amount of value from today, from Sean, all those great questions you guys asked. If you guys got some value, do us all a favor. Make sure you go and add yourself to the Facebook group. And if you have some business for Sean, hire Sean. He's amazing. He's a go-giver. He's ready to work. He's ready to be your advocate in a time of question. And that is the purpose of our attorneys. That's why we need them. That's why we cherish them, and we befriend as many as we can in all the different industries. Sean, you're a fantastic gentleman. We truly, truly admire your work in this industry and in this space. Thank you so much for being a guest on Wholesale Hotline. And to all of you guys that tuned in, Wholesale Hotline number 70 was amazing. Amazing. We will see you all next week.
Love you guys.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?
I didn't say nothing.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Cool. I think we should use the one where Jamil doesn't say anything.